They sold me as if I were an object. A name on a list, a body to be delivered. No one asked if I wanted it. They just signed away my freedom, my dignity, everything that was left of me. I was no longer a daughter, not a bride, not even a woman. I was a bargain, a price, a convenient silence. They said I would have a new life, but no one told me if that life would come with respect, with safety, with love. And if I told you that this is the beginning of the most unexpected story of my life, where what seemed like my end was only the beginning of something that not even in my most desperate dreams I ever dared to wish for. I was sold to a count with sorrowful eyes, but all he ever wanted was my love. If this story has already touched your heart in these first seconds, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. What this count carries in his eyes will move you to your very last breath. There were no flowers, no music, least of all no love. The wedding took place in a stifling hall, with too many tapestries and too little dignity. The dim lighting wasn't enough to hide the discomfort in people's eyes, though it didn't dim the greasy shine of greed in the eyes of the men present. They called it an honor dinner, but the honor wasn't mine. I was the only piece on display, a body once broken in silence, now auctioned off under the pretense of nobility. At 18, I was sold to cover the debts of a family that never wanted me, an illegitimate daughter of a duke, born of the mistake he dared to love in secret and hid for the rest of his life. My mother died young, and when he passed too, leaving behind a shattered reputation and empty coffers, I was left in the care of his wife, a woman who made sure, with every gesture, every word, to remind me that I was a living mistake. Educated at home, as befitted a noble bastard girl, I was forcibly shaped to please others' eyes, while being crushed in the shadows of hallways. My dignity was wounded in silence, by someone to whom she had opened her doors and offered protection. And I never denounced him, out of fear of being branded ungrateful. Since then, I carry a thick silence in my body, and a bone-deep mistrust. The marriage contract was signed on a table where wine had once been served. The handwriting was elegant, the clauses obscene. The union must be sealed in formal matrimony, with a valid civil record, within 24 hours, under penalty of nullification of the agreement. My body became currency. My life reduced to papers and witnesses. My name replaced by a title I did not choose. Aurelia Moreau, now Aurelia Thorne, Countess of Limit, wife of a man who barely looked into my eyes. When I saw him for the first time, I confess I felt a strange relief, silent, ashamed that he wasn't one of the decaying old men, with sweetened breath and oily stares, who looked at me like vultures circling warm flesh. He was young, tall, sober. His black suit fit his broad frame perfectly, and his bearing spoke of quiet more than arrogance. But what he did was no different. He paid a fortune, the highest bid of the night, without hesitation, and that revolted me more than any lustful stare, because the greed of the old men, I understood, but the mystery of this man who bought me in silence and disappeared the moment the papers were signed, that unsettled me. Perhaps he was the worst kind of threat, the kind that doesn't announce itself. So when they called my new title aloud, Milady Thorne, I didn't answer right away. Because deep inside, I still didn't know if I was a woman, or merely the tragic result of other people's decisions.
She hated me. I could feel it in the way she held herself stiff beside me, as if the polished leather of the carriage seat burned her skin. Her neck was held too high, her shoulders too tense, her gaze fixed too intensely on the passing trees, as if waiting for one of them to reach out its branches and pull her away. But what I saw wasn't hatred. It was defense, contained fury, wounded pride. Aurelia Moreau, Countess of Limit by legal clause. But before that, before any ceremony, even before the name, she was already something that had lodged itself beneath my skin. I remembered the first time I saw her, with almost cruel clarity. I was passing through a rural village, accompanying an old friend on a visit to a noble but declining horse farm. I stayed behind, as I often did, preferring to observe from a distance. That's when I heard the voice, low, warm, shaking with emotion. It wasn't a prayer. It was a confession. I followed the sound and found her kneeling in the straw beside a lame horse. Her brown hair was hastily tied back, a simple scarf covering her head. She wore a plain dress, She could have passed for any country girl, until she opened her mouth. They don't understand, you know. They say pain fades with time, that you just have to keep up appearances and endure in silence. But time doesn't heal anything. It just hides. And what's hidden rots inside. She caressed the horse's muzzle, her eyes full of tenderness. You still flinch when someone comes near, don't you? Me too. I flinch every time someone touches me. Every time someone pretends to see me. I stood there, motionless, unseen and undone. There was something about that girl, in the fragile melody of her voice, in the devastating simplicity of her beauty, in the loneliness dripping from every word, that caught me in a way few could understand. And I tried to forget her, for weeks, but her eyes, even though they had never met mine, stared back at me in every silence of my house. The broken voice, the gentleness with which she spoke to the wounded horse, the way she hid even from herself. It all haunted me, and cruelly it captivated me. I thought it had been a poetic accident, a nameless encounter. Fleeting moment life would let evaporate with time, but time only deepened the memory. I saw her again from afar a few days later. She was beside a stern-faced lady, whom I quickly recognized as the second wife of the late Duke of Bellegarde. The girl walked a step behind, dressed simply, shoulders curved like someone who had learned to take up as little space as possible. And it was there, by chance or by fate, that I heard the name. Aurelia Moreau. Discreetly, I asked the innkeeper about the two. He replied with disdain, "The Duke's bastard," raised like a shadow. Some say the stepmother keeps her alive out of sheer convenience, until that no longer suits her. The name seared into me like a seal, and it never left. Months later, on a warm, bureaucratic afternoon, my secretary entered my office with his usual indifferent tone, until he casually mentioned between documents, "Rumor has it, a young woman of noble blood will be negotiated to settle the late Duke of Bellegarde's debts. A certain Aurelia Moreau, an illegitimate daughter, raised in the shadows of fortune, now offered as a desperate solution. A silent tragedy like so many others." I froze. The paper slipped from my hands. Aurelia, her, the girl from the stable, the voice of an open wound, the soul no one saw, now to be sold like noble cattle at the end of a market day. Something inside me shifted beyond return. The outrage was no longer moral. It was personal. And in that instant I understood. I couldn't allow it. Blood rushed through me like it hadn't in years. It was that familiar, controlled fury that always rose within me when facing injustices dressed in civility. I didn't hesitate. I interrupted a diplomatic meeting, tore up my schedule, and did what no one else seemed willing to do. I went to that so-called honor dinner and placed the bid that ended all others. Not out of vanity, not out of desire, but because no one deserved to be silenced the way she was. And if no one would protect her, then I would.
The carriage was lined with blue-gray satin, soft to the touch, yet as cold as the emptiness growing inside me. The silence between us wasn't comfortable. It was armed space. As if every unsaid word were a sheathed blade, ready for the worst. He didn't try to speak. He didn't look at me. He sat upright, chin firm, hands resting on his knees. The portrait of restraint. An inconvenience, a stranger, a title with a voice, and yet a man who belonged to me on paper, but not in my heart. When I finally broke the silence, my voice came out steadier than I expected, but laced with the bitterness of everything I had swallowed over the years. "If you think I'm going to thank you for saving me, you're mistaken." The response came immediately, not with offense, but with the deepest, calmest voice I had ever heard. Low, smooth, dangerously gentle. "I expect no thanks, Countess," he said without turning his head. Countess. The title struck me like a slap, as if a single signature could make me be born anew, as if everything I was, or everything that had been stolen from me, could be replaced by a surname I did not choose. I turned to him. For the first time, and when our eyes met, something inside me trembled. The faint stubble shadowed a face of strong, severe lines, but it was the eyes that caught me. Wet gray, deep and quiet like the sky before a storm. He wasn't handsome in the easy way of young men. He was a man, whole, weighted, and there was a discreet sadness in him, hidden, but real. I'm not a woman who can be bought, I whispered, my throat tight. He finally looked at me. Fully. For a long time. And there was no mockery, no cynicism. What I saw was far worse. Pity. No, he said, with a calm that hurt. But you are someone who deserved to be saved, and I needed to be the man who saved you.
She reacted to my presence like a cornered animal, breathing too deeply, holding her chin too high. But what she tried to protect with that warrior's posture was a tired soul. That fury wasn't directed at me. It was against everything that had been done to her. And for a moment I wished I had been just a passing stranger, not the man before whom she now had to hide so much. I didn't move closer. I didn't touch her hands, not even when the swaying of the carriage nudged our shoulders together. I would not be another who crossed her boundaries, but when she finally looked at me, and for the first time our eyes met, what I felt unraveled me from within. Something shifted inside me, slow but deep, as if her pain had tangled with mine in some old wordless recognition. And for the first time in many years, felt the urge to speak, but she spoke first, sharp, cutting. What interest does a count have in my position? She threw at me with irony. You should seek someone worthy of your title, not a woman who's broken. She said it like someone expecting a blow, like someone who knew it was coming, like someone who wanted to hate me before I could hurt her. If my intentions were base or vulgar, I replied calmly, I wouldn't have married you. She studied me with narrowed eyes, searching for cracks, weaknesses. Then she asked with a mix of defiance and fragility, should I be afraid of you? For a moment I just breathed. Then I looked deeply into her eyes, deeper than perhaps anyone ever had. Unhurried, unangry. Only a question returned with every truth I had. Do you think you should be afraid of me? She held my gaze. 1 second, 2. Then she looked away, and I knew she didn't know what to think. And because of that, she didn't trust yet, but I wouldn't rush her. A woman like her isn't one with promises. She's one with presence, with respectful silence, with constancy. And I intended to be all of that, until the day she no longer felt the need to protect herself from me.
When the carriage finally stopped, the sky was gray, threatening rain. The wrought iron gates opened with an ancient creak, revealing the estate. Rosemore Hall, cold, vast, impeccable. There was symmetry in everything, the windows, the gardens, even the silence. An imposing, beautiful house, but joyless. Like him, we stepped down. The servants stood in a neat line. The housekeeper, a stern figure, bowed. The elderly butler, dignified, looked at me with respect. The young stable hand, Tom, avoided my eyes, and a small red-haired girl, Lisette, my lady's maid, as I'd later learn, smiled in a way that seemed to say, "You're not alone." But I was. Inside, the world was made of marble, tapestries, and family portraits where not a single woman seemed to smile. The servants carried the chest with my belongings to my room. There wasn't much. A few dresses, coats, personal objects, and my journal. When they led me to the room, "Your chambers, milady," I took a deep breath. The maid, Lisette, that was her name, was delicate. Kind even, but her movements followed a ritual that made me feel as if I were being prepared for the slaughter. Her hands braided my hair with precision. Her words were sweet, but I barely heard them. The evening gown, pale embroidered satin, flowed over my skin like water. Cold, untouchable. The room smelled of fresh lavender. "And I am of fear. All done, milady." "You look beautiful," she said, with a smile meant to comfort me. But nothing reached me then. "He's a good man, you know. Everyone here says so," I smiled, by reflex. She left shortly after, closing the door with a polite click. And the moment silence fell, I broke. I didn't cry with drama, but with the mute fury of someone who's had to be strong for far too long. My shoulders shook, my hands clenched on my lap, and my heart beat as if begging for a truce. I was, after all, a wife now, and I had no idea what to expect. That's when I heard the footsteps, slow, precise, and the knock at the door, soft, but echoing like thunder. My stomach churned. My hands went cold. The Count. My body reacted before reason. I stood almost mechanical. The nightgown, far too thin, clung to my skin, still damp from the warm bath that had failed to soothe me. The candles cast timid shadows across the walls. When I opened the door, he was there. Harry Thorne. Tall, solid. A man who seemed carved from silence and stone. He wore a dark shirt, collar slightly undone, hair a little disheveled, as if he too was trying to make sense of it all. But what unsettled me most was his voice. "I don't want to frighten you," he said, with that low, velvety tone that seemed to brush against me without touching. "I just came to give you something." There was a small package in his hands, neat, carefully wrapped. He extended it toward me and I accepted it, hesitant, as if every gesture between us might alter the fate of something invisible. It was a small, dark wooden box, delicately carved with floral patterns and secured by an old clasp. I opened it. Inside, a silver and ivory brooch, a winged horse, so delicate that for a moment I thought I was dreaming. I swallowed hard. I have nothing to give you in return," I murmured, feeling my face flush as if I were committing some unforgivable crime. He looked away, just for a moment, long enough for his gaze to travel, unhurried, along the curve of my silhouette beneath the chemise. Then his eyes returned to mine. Now slightly darker, my heart sped up, and without knowing why, my hand moved to the ribbon that tied my chemise. I touched it. Only touched. Like someone wondering if they must, if they should, but he understood. He stepped forward, and didn't touch me, but surrounded me with the warmth of his body. The firmness of his presence, and a silence that spoke louder than words. His eyes rested on mine. Then softly, "You're trembling." "It's the cold," I lied. He tilted his head slightly. I didn't know what to expect. Perhaps the inevitable. But instead, he leaned closer to my ear and whispered, low, almost intimate, "Good night, Countess. May your dreams be light." And he hesitated, his lips almost brushing my skin. "You're beautiful." Before I could respond, he stepped back, opened the door, and left. I stood there, still, with the brooch between my fingers, and my heart racing out of rhythm.
Her eyes were red. She had been crying. Of that I was certain, but I said nothing. I didn't want to touch her wounds, not tonight. Giving her the gift, the one I'd commissioned without knowing when or why, felt almost foolish compared to what I truly wanted to give her. But I wanted to make a gesture, something that might make her feel welcome. In this house? In my life, and still, she reacted as if it were a treasure, not because of the object itself, but because of the gesture. She apologized for not having anything to give me in return, not realizing that the greatest gift was her presence here, in this house. I saw the exact moment she trembled. I caught the instant she thought I might expect something in exchange. And when her fingers touched the ribbon of her chemise, my instincts roared. My gaze slipped before I could control it. The soft curve of her waist, the outline of her legs beneath the thin linen, the delicate shape of her breasts. My God, she was a beautiful woman. Then, quickly, I returned my gaze to hers, because that was where I wanted to stay. She wasn't just beautiful. She was real, made of fear, strength, and unspoken scars. I desired her in a way I hadn't in years. But I didn't touch her, because it wasn't time, and because respect to me wasn't decoration, it was principle. I closed the door behind me and headed to the library. Desire pulsed in me. The urge to hold her, to undress her with both care and hunger, was almost unbearable. But more than anything, I wanted her to choose one day to love me, not merely to belong to me. I spent the night awake. No wine, no dreams, only the scent of her lingering in the air, and the silent promise I made to never touch her. Without the yes of her soul.
The first light of morning in Rosemore Hall was cold, golden, but without warmth, like everything here. The tall curtains swayed gently in the wind that seeped through the gaps, and even wrapped in fine linens, my body took time to relax. I couldn't tell if I had truly slept, or simply drifted off from exhaustion, physical and emotional. Lisette entered quietly, carrying a silver tray. Hot tea, fruit, a warm buttered roll. "Good morning, milady," she said with that small smile that always seemed to carry a quiet kind of compassion. "Thank you," I replied, my voice husky. "Lisette, may I ask you something?" She nodded softly. "Is he always like this? So restrained?" She smiled wider and her eyes sparkled. "The Count is reserved, but good. He almost never raises his voice, never asserts himself without reason. The staff respect him. Some adore him. Why?" "Because he sees us," she said, as if revealing a secret. I stayed quiet, watching the steam rise from my teacup. A man who sees. Something shifted inside me. A distant memory of what it feels like to be noticed without being used. I dressed in a blue-gray gown Lisette suggested. Fitted bodice, wide skirts, long lace sleeves. When I saw myself in the mirror, for the first time since the wedding, I caught a brief glimpse that perhaps I wasn't as broken as I thought. I walked down the silent corridors. Rosemore Hall was vast, symmetrical, refined, but filled with absences. There were fresh flowers on every table, immaculate rugs, old portraits, and yet, it all felt like a house that had forgotten how to live. The housekeeper, Mrs. Evelyn, guided me through the property. Rigid posture, white hair tied in a perfect bun, but there was a sharp attentiveness in her gaze. "This is the east wing, where the reception rooms are. That is the music room. Further ahead, the library." "And Lord Thorne?" I asked without thinking. "He's already in his study. The Count begins his duties before dawn, but he is always watchful," she said, enigmatically. As we passed one of the windows, I saw him outside, walking among the stables with Tom, the stable hand. Shirt sleeves rolled up, hair tousled by the breeze. Not the image of an idle aristocrat, but of a man who led by example. My heart faltered. I didn't trust him, but I admired him.
I knew she had woken up early. Lisette, ever discreet, let slip that she had asked to see the house. That pleased me, not out of vanity, but because I understood that she had at last set her feet on her own ground. I saw her pass through the gallery hallway, dressed in blue. The color was modest, but on her it seemed made to captivate the eye without a hint of vulgarity. I wanted to go to her, to ask how she had slept, but I held back. Aurelia was like a deer in the woods, beautiful, but ready to flee. In my study, I reviewed estate documents and drafted diplomatic letters, but my eyes kept returning to the window, hoping by chance to see her pass again. I was interrupted by Greaves, the butler, who informed me that lunch would be served in the winter garden, as Evelyn had suggested, in an attempt to make the environment more welcoming. I agreed. The table was set with silver cutlery, fine china, and lavender and chamomile arrangements. When she entered, the air itself seemed to shift. "Milady," I said, rising. She hesitated but sat across from me. For long minutes we ate in silence. The sound of cutlery, the wind at the windows, porcelain lightly touching. Then she said, "I'm sorry if I was harsh yesterday. You don't need to apologize." "Yes, I do. I don't know how to be anything other than what's expected of me." I looked at her, and perhaps allowed more tenderness than I should to slip into my voice. "Then be only what you want to be, Aurelia. The rest can wait." She lowered her gaze, and I wanted to touch her, but remained still.
I spent the morning gazing at the landscape through the library window. A deep crease between my brows, hands folded in my lap. My posture spoke louder of my hesitation than any words could. But there was something within me stirring timidly, almost guiltily, whenever my eyes fell upon the open fields and the distant stables. The desire was simple, but I no longer knew how to make requests, so I waited to find him. And when I saw him crossing the corridor toward his study, my fingers tightened around the book I was pretending to read. "My lord," I called softly. He turned with immediate gentleness. That, in truth, always surprised me about him. The way he stopped, the way he listened, as if everything said to him deserved to be fully heard. "Aurelia," he replied. My name left his lips as though it were precious, even when spoken quietly. "I thought of writing a bit." "Of course," he said, without hesitation. "The southern fields are most pleasant in the morning. Speak with Tom. He'll prepare your horse." I nodded, ready to leave. But he wasn't finished. "If you don't mind," he added, his gaze restrained. I could join you once I finish my letters. I was speechless. Not because it was improper, but because I had never imagined he'd want to share something so simple with me. He was the Count, and I, the shadow of the new Countess. "If you wish," I murmured, averting my gaze.
She hesitated, and that was the detail that struck me the most. Aurelia wasn't trying to please. She wasn't being coy. She looked at me like someone asking permission from a world that had taught her not to expect kindness. And that broke something in me, quietly, deeply. She rode well, with an effortless elegance, as if taught young but never truly tamed. The divided blue riding skirt flowed softly around her legs, her hair pulled into a low bun, though a few rebellious strands had already escaped. When I caught up to her, she was already riding across the fields with complete control of the reins. "I didn't know you had such command over a creature so proud," I commented, matching my horse's pace to hers. "I usually trust horses more than people," she replied, unapologetic. I smiled, and something in her softened. We rode across the fields under the muted light of a silvery gray sky. She threw me sidelong glances as if studying me, though she wouldn't admit it. By some whim of fate or nature, we stopped near a low fence where wildflowers grew unassumingly between stones. She dismounted. I followed. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she broke the silence. "This house is too clean, too tidy, as if it's afraid to be touched." "Perhaps it is," I replied. "Like you," she whispered. It wasn't an accusation. It was a truth spoken softly. I nodded lightly. There was nothing to deny.
He knelt beside a flower pushing through the stones. Orange petals, fragile, a single bloom. "Do these grow here every year?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. "Every year. Even when no one plants them," he answered. "Persistence is a kind of beauty, too." I smiled without realizing it, and he looked at me from the side, not the way a man looks at a woman with desire, but as someone witnessing a quiet miracle. The wind suddenly blew, and a lock of my hair slipped free, whipping across my face. Then he did something unexpected. Calmly, without haste. He lifted a hand and brushed the strand away, his fingers grazing my skin lightly. His touch was brief. And even so, it ignited something inside me that frightened me. My body reacted with a shiver, my heart racing. I instinctively stepped back. "Forgive me," I said, lowering my head. "The sun," it suddenly grew too bright, the most foolish excuse I'd ever given. But he didn't laugh. He didn't mock me. He simply nodded, stepping back with quiet dignity, as if accepting the barrier, and still remaining present. And for some reason, I wished he hadn't stopped.
She pulled away as if from danger, and it tore at me. Not out of pride, but for what it revealed. Something in her still cried out for protection, even when desire was already showing itself in her gestures, in her gaze. My touch had been instinctive. I only wanted to move the strand from her face. But then I caught her scent, and I swear, for 1 second my world stopped. Her scent was exactly as I'd imagined that sleepless night. Lavender, and something else. Something purely her, but I didn't touch her again. And I didn't push. We rode back in silence. And for the first time, the tension between us wasn't only fear or mistrust. It was something new, taut, almost beautiful.
The morning silence in Rosemore Hall felt almost ceremonial. Before the sound of the servants awakening the house, I was already up. I could still feel the warmth of his fingers brushing the loose strand from my hair. I remembered my first night in that room as a countess. I remembered the gentleness of the gift, the heat of a presence that didn't touch, yet set everything alight. His scent, his low voice near my ear, the way his gaze traced the outline of my body without daring to invade it, and the desire blooming inside me with the uncomfortable certainty of something new and irreversible. God, what's happening to me? I dressed alone, refusing Lisette's help. I needed privacy. And before leaving, I walked to the dresser, opened the second drawer, and took out the small navy blue diary that had been with me since my teenage years. It wasn't beautiful or new, but it was the only place where my voice wasn't smothered by judgment. I wrote one line, then another, then stopped. There's something about him. I don't know if it's the way he looks at me or the way he steps back. Maybe it's the silence, a silence that screams like mine. I closed the diary, took a deep breath, and tucked it back inside. I went down to the east wing of the mansion, drawn by something Lisette had whispered the night before. The library is the heart of the house, and of the Count. I pushed open the heavy doors. Light filtered through the tall windows in warm golden tones, and the scent of old wood, leather, and paper wrapped around me like an unexpected embrace. I walked between shelves until I reached a small table in the back, where a few notebooks and objects lay arranged with almost intimate order. One of the notebooks caught my eye. It was open, covered in sketches, drawings, rough sketches of weapons, horses, and parts of some structure, perhaps a hunting mechanism or a trap. The handwriting was youthful, and there was a name faded in ink, Julian. My chest tightened. The name, mentioned in passing by Lisette, echoed now like an old whisper. The brother, the one who died, the one who should have stood where Harry stands. I traced the edge of the paper with my fingertips, feeling not guilt, but intrusion. I shouldn't be here. He liked to invent things, a voice said behind me. I spun around, and there he was, Harry Thorne. The colored stained glass cast ethereal shades across his face, but his eyes were that same quiet, sorrowful blue I was beginning to recognize in myself. He didn't scold me, didn't show anger. He simply walked to the table, looked at the sketches, and gently rested his fingers on a page. He would spend entire afternoons trying to build a bow that could fire 3 arrows at once, he said with a faint smile that didn't reach his eyes. He never managed it, but he had fun trying. I didn't mean to. I began, embarrassed. There's no need to explain, he replied calmly. Julian would have loved to know someone was curious about his work. He again liked being noticed. The way he said it undid me. For a moment, he seemed vulnerable. More man than Count. More soul than title. I admire you, slipped from my lips. Pardon? You, my lord, I corrected, though it was too late. The way you move through this house, the way you look at people, the way you lead without having to rule with force. He looked at me, long and searching, and there, I felt a crack in the wall between us. Sometimes it's hard to believe I'm the man everyone expects me to be, he said with cutting honesty. And who is the man you believe yourself to be? He held my gaze. For a second I thought he'd answer, but instead, he stepped closer, slowly, as if changing course without haste. Come with me, he said, extending his hand. Where? I asked, confused. I want to show you something. A place no one else knows. But perhaps you should. I hesitated for a moment. Then I placed my hand in his, and its warmth, even through the gloves, ran through me to my very core. We walked together in silence, through the corridors of Rosemore. And though I didn't know where I was going for the first time, I felt I might be walking toward the beginning of something real.
We walked along a narrow trail, blanketed in damp leaves and branches bowed under the weight of moisture. She walked beside me in silence, her posture erect like a shield, but her eyes alert. Those eyes always observing more than they revealed. It was a pale afternoon. The sky was cloaked in heavy gray clouds, as if foreshadowing something. And perhaps it was. Because there was something I'd kept buried for far too long. I led her to a clearing in the heart of the forest. An open space surrounded by tall trees like silent sentinels, exposed roots, the rich scent of earth. Everything felt suspended there. As if time itself had not resumed since the day that changed me. I stopped beside a moss-covered stone, placed my hand on it, and only then did I speak. It was here, she looked at me, not understanding. Julian. Died here. Oh. She breathed a whisper. It was an autumn hunt. He was 17. I was 15. I already knew how to ride well. But I drew in a deep breath. He wanted to prove himself. Took the trail alone. Fired before he should have. The horse was startled, and he fell. I paused. The sound of the wind through the trees spoke for me. He hit his head. It was instant. My voice came out low, steady. She didn't move. She just listened. He was meant to be here. Not me, this house, this title, were never mine. I'm just the substitute who remained. I stared into the empty space before me. The earth, the leaves, the unyielding stones, everything still, except what hurt. I never wanted any of this. I only tried to do what was expected of me. Her silence lasted longer than a moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet, but each word precise. "And you paid a price for it?" I looked at her, surprised not to hear pity, but she continued, and what she said cut straight through me. "Everyone sees the count, the lineage, the title you carry with almost cruel dignity. But I see the man, the son who stayed, the brother who survived, the man who didn't run from pain, who stood tall even though he never asked to fill this place, and still turned the burden into purpose." She took a deep breath and finished, her eyes holding mine as if stripping me bare with tenderness. "This house, this title, perhaps they weren't yours by choice, but they are now, and in your hands, they're better than they ever were."
I didn't know what words to use, but sometimes words are too small to hold a pain that vast. In that moment, I saw the Count everyone feared, respected, or avoided. As a boy who had lost his brother, as a man who inherited a guilt no one had dared to share with him, I saw the sharp lines of his clenched jaw, the dark beard shading his sorrow, and something in me moved. His pain touched mine. It echoed, and before I could think, my hand, bare, ungloved, unfiltered, rose slowly. I touched his face. Warm skin, soft stubble, a touch of tenderness, of quiet shelter. His eyes closed, and he tilted his head slightly, like someone finding the rest they'd longed for, as if receiving something he had been waiting for years. And in that moment, I saw him. I didn't see a Count, I saw Harry, the man who needed to be seen. When he opened his eyes, something had changed. The blue sorrow in them seemed clearer, as if for a brief instant it had lifted, and there was warmth there, blue but warm, a sense of belonging. We smiled, small knowing smiles, like two souls who understand without needing to speak. Thunder cracked in the distance, not violent but deep, nature reminding us that it was time to return. "Shall we?" he asked, his voice low, rough. "Yes," I answered, my hand still lingering on his skin for a heartbeat longer. And then he took my hand. Not as possession, but as invitation, we rode back together, and on the way home, even without words, our silences wove together like intertwined fingers. And for the first time since I arrived at Rosemore, I felt close to someone. Truly close.
I hadn't planned to go in, but the door left slightly ajar. Her absence, and the sound of rain tapping against the windows created a suspended atmosphere that stopped me in my tracks. It felt as though the house itself held my step. She had gone out walking with Lisette to the greenhouse, and the room was quiet, warm, intimate, filled with her presence even without her body there. That's when I saw it, on the dresser half open. A small navy blue notebook, the ribbon untied and the first page gently curled with time. Her diary. I froze. My first instinct was to close the door and leave. But something stopped me. Not curiosity, but care. I thought of all the times I'd seen her retreat, fall silent, harden in front of me, even when all I offered was space. I thought of her eyes, often full of a pain that couldn't be explained by disdain alone. There was more, and in that instant, chance gave me the right to know, and the weight of choosing whether I wanted to. I approached slowly. My hand hovered over the open page, just one movement to close, to respect, or to see. I closed my eyes, and when I opened them, I read, "I am not just what's left after the scorn. I am what survived the violent touch, the forced silence, the shame that wasn't mine. It was taken from me by a man my stepmother called an ally. He crossed lines no man should ever cross, and no one heard me when I screamed because my scream was only on the inside. His name is Victor Langley, a man with a title and filthy hands." Bile rose. My blood boiled. I gripped the edge of the dresser to keep my hands away from the gun I always carried. Victor Langley. I knew the name. A polished parasite, a man whose smile lingered too long at dinners, who flattered dukes like changing coats. But now he was something else, a real monster. I kept reading unevenly. Since then I carry a mark that time cannot erase. I walked into this marriage as one walking over burning coals. But the Count, Harry Thorne, looks at me as if I am worthy of care. And that terrifies me. I want to trust. I want to lower the walls, but I don't know how to be unguarded. Without feeling violated, I closed the diary with trembling hands. My veins pulsed as if each word had been etched beneath my skin. Victor Langley. The name burned into my memory like an old curse. I knew who he was, and now I knew what he had done. It wasn't just scorn she had suffered. It wasn't just cruel words or rejection. It was something worse, something vile, the kind of violence that marks a body from the inside out, that nests in the soul and makes it flinch even at the gentlest touch. And still, she walked, she breathed, she wrote, and about me. She saw a good man, a trustworthy man. I swallowed hard. It didn't make me proud. It broke me. Because in that moment, more than desire, more than impulse, I wanted to protect her, to be the man who would make that shadow disappear, not with words, but with gestures, with presence, with patience, and yes, with love. But there was fire, too. The thought that that wretch still walked free, parading his polished manners and noble ring. The thought that he had touched her who was now my wife, my home, my compass. It ignited a primitive rage inside me, thirst for vengeance, not out of wounded pride, but because no woman should carry that pain, and no man should walk free after causing it. I closed the diary, put it back where it had been. I won't tell her I read it. Some truths are too heavy to hand back to the one who carries them. But I left something, not a confession, not a promise, just a gesture, a freshly picked flower from the greenhouse garden, and a note in my restrained but firm handwriting. For tonight, if it feels long, may sweetness soothe your soul, and may you remember you are no longer alone. I set it on the nightstand beside the bed, next to a small lavender and honey petit four, still slightly warm, prepared at my quiet request to the cook, under the guise of a simple kindness. A small gift, a silent sign, to soften the night, to nurture the fragile idea that she could begin to trust. And then I left, before she returned to the room, before the sound of her footsteps could betray any hesitation, but with a new vow carved deep into my chest. She would never feel fear again. Not with me. Never again.
I felt something different the moment I entered the room. The candlelight was lower, and the air carried a new calm, as if someone had silently cared for every detail. Lisette followed behind me, holding a few things for my nightly bath, but my attention drifted first to the nightstand. There rested a small fresh flower, and beside it, a folded note bearing Harry's restrained, elegant handwriting, and a treat, not just any treat, a lavender and honey petit four, its surface delicately golden, like a tiny jewel of sugar. I smiled. A real smile, the kind that escapes without permission and lingers on the face like a shy ray of sunlight. Lisette stepped closer, curious. "Milady, the Count sent this?" "It seems so," I murmured, still staring at the note. I touched the paper with the tip of my fingers, as if it were too precious to rush. I read it, once, then again. "For tonight, if it feels long, may sweetness soothe your soul, and may you remember you are no longer alone." My heart didn't just race. It tightened and expanded, all at once, and he has such gentle gestures, Lisette remarked, with a knowing look that hid a smile. "He does," I whispered, still unable to say more. I lifted the petit four to my face, closed my eyes and inhaled. The lavender scent was soft and sweet, like a small, silent promise. "I'll save it," I said with a smile. "After dinner, before bed, I want to enjoy it slowly." Lisette nodded, her eyes shining, and I knew she understood. It wasn't just about the treat. It was about the gesture, about the man who left it, and what he seemed to want to say, without saying anything at all. And for the first time, I didn't just feel protected. I felt that someone was waiting for me to want to be cared for. That night, the house felt wrapped in velvet. Outside, the wind whispered against the stained glass like an ancient secret. The fireplaces were lit, spreading warmth and a golden glow across Rosemore Hall. Lisette was brushing my hair in front of the mirror when I heard it. Soft, slow, a piano. "The Count is playing," she said with a little smile before slipping away, leaving me alone with a racing heart and eyes fixed on my own reflection. I went downstairs without knowing why. Or perhaps knowing exactly. The sound came from the west wing, a room forgotten during the day, but at night, it came alive with each note. I opened the door slowly. He was there, seated at the old ebony piano, his shoulders relaxed, eyes half closed, fingers gliding across the keys with quiet intimacy. It wasn't technique he played. It was emotion, contained pain, veiled desire. Everything he didn't say turned into sound. I stood at the doorway, transfixed. The white shirt fit perfectly beneath the vest, sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms, one collar button undone. The dark beard traced his sharp jawline, and there was something in the way he moved, something that made me forget the cold. He saw me and stopped. "You don't have to," I whispered.
"Keep playing," he obeyed.
But his eyes stayed on mine. I moved closer slowly. The carpet swallowed my steps, as if the house conspired to keep the silence between us a little longer. I sat beside him on the padded bench. Our shoulders didn't touch, but the warmth was enough. The sound of the music filled the space between our bodies, and what resonated inside me was no longer fear. It was something new. Desire without threat, a wanting born of freedom. He kept playing, but I felt his attention shift toward me, to the way my hands rested on my lap, to how my breathing changed, to the way my eyes now and then betrayed me and sought his. "I never knew you played," I murmured. "I never knew I wanted to be heard," he replied. The notes grew slower, more spaced, and then he stopped. Silence fell between us. But it wasn't empty. It was a quiet waiting, and then I felt it. The tip of his fingers brushed the back of my hand. A simple gesture, so light it could have been accidental, but it wasn't. My entire body shivered, as if finally something within me had been touched, with respect, with tenderness, with a warmth that didn't burn, but gently lit me from the inside. He pulled back immediately. "I'm sorry," he murmured, his voice deeper than ever. "If you're not ready, I won't touch you." The silence between us suddenly felt cruel, so I took a deep breath and turned my hand, offering him my palm as if entrusting a secret. I held his. "Maybe," I said, my voice trembling, "maybe I'm just learning that I can want, without fear."
The touch of her hand in mine was more than a response. It was relief, a whispered permission, a wall crumbling, not with a crash, but with tenderness. I watched her, like I had never watched anyone before. Her lashes trembled, still caught between instinct and choice. But her eyes held mine, an unfathomable ocean, inviting me to dive in without return. She was a woman learning to desire. Not out of duty, but because she wanted to. I leaned in slowly, and it was she who tilted her face toward me, she who closed her eyes first. My kiss was a promise, soft, reverent, deep as a prayer. Her warm lips answered gently, but there was a restrained urgency there, like someone discovering she could indeed be touched and wanted. When we parted, her eyes remained closed. She smiled, softly, as if savoring something she had waited for all her life. We stayed there, in silence, hands intertwined, hearts finally aligned. Outside, the wind howled louder, but inside, in Rosemore Hall's music room, calm had finally found a home.
The sky was overcast when I decided to ride. A pale gray light blanketed the fields, and the cold breeze made the leaves whisper as if they were watching me. But I needed to get out. After the night in the music room, something inside me had shifted. It wasn't exactly peace, but it was the beginning of a space within me where fear no longer ruled alone. Tom, the stable hand, saddled my horse as usual, and Lisette, who often accompanied me on long walks, had been urgently called to assist Evelyn with something at the manor. "I won't go far," I assured them. "Just to the ridge. I'll be back before the next cloud closes in." They hesitated, but they let me go. I had the steady look of someone determined to breathe alone. I rode lightly, my hair loose beneath the hood, coat pulled tight against my body, feeling for the first time that the world didn't swallow me whole, that something out there belonged to me. In the wind, in the field, in freedom. That's when I heard it. A snap behind the trees. The horse reared slightly and I slowed. The voice followed, still so beautiful, still smelling like a fresh flower. I froze. All the blood drained from my face. I dismounted slowly, like someone afraid of startling their own shadow. Lord Victor Langley. Like a well-dressed crow. Black coat, polished boots, fine leather gloves, a silk handkerchief folded precisely in his breast pocket. The appearance of a gentleman. The soul of a predator. What are you doing here? My voice came out weak, but firm enough to be heard. He smiled. But that wasn't a smile. It was venom. Business. A meeting with a decaying duke who still believes he has some influence. And imagine my surprise when I heard the name Lady Thorne whispered in a nearby gambling house. And discovered it was the bastard of Bellegarde. Finally. Polished, embroidered, presentable. Get out of my way, I said, trying to steer around him with the reins firm in my hand. He stepped forward, blocking the trail. And his eyes, still so naive. Aurelia, do you really think a new surname wipes away what was done? You can wear French lace, sign as a countess, but inside, you still bleed like that dirty little girl no one wanted to protect. That sentence froze me. The bitter memory churned my stomach. He took another step. The Count. I began, but he cut me off, his voice lower, more dangerous. The Count doesn't know, does he? He doesn't know what you were, doesn't know what you allowed. And if he finds out, what will you say? That you were touched? That you were mine? That no one came for you? He stepped closer. His eyes stripped me as if he had a right he never did. He'd look at you differently. Maybe he'd stay married, but deep down, he'd know. He'd know you're marked. He'd despise you because he'd see what you really are. I'm not what you say, I murmured, trying to keep my body steady. And you will never touch me again. That's when he reached out. The cold leather glove seized my wrist with bruising force, yanking me toward him violently. Are you sure about that? I tried to pull away. I struggled, fought, but my strength felt useless against that vile man. Each shake made me feel his grip tighten, his power pressing into me. He was quick, just like before. His hand clamped down on my nape with brutal familiarity, and in a vile movement he tried to force a kiss. I turned my head, but his lips still grazed my face, whispering filthy obscenities. Oh God, I wanted to disappear right then. I can still hear your muffled scream echoing in my memory. While you were mine, Aurelia, his hand pressed against my waist, his thumb sliding along the curve of my skin beneath the cloak. This is just a reminder. You may stand on a pedestal now, but I still know what lies beneath. Then he saw it. The brooch, pinned to my dress. The winged horse, silver and ivory, his eyes darkened. His hand shot up, and with a harsh jerk, he ripped the brooch from my chest, the metal clinking against the ground before he picked it up. No! I cried instinctively, reaching to take it back. He stepped back half a pace, holding the jewel between his fingers like it was a toy, and then he smiled. A crooked smile, cruel, satisfied. So this has value. Interesting. His eyes returned to mine, his face tilting with dangerous arrogance. I'll keep it. Until you learn to be a good girl, and give me exactly what I want from you. The subtext burned my skin like acid. He shoved me against the trunk of a tree. The impact was sharp. My arm scraped against the bark. The brooch was gone from my hands, and the air from my chest. And if you tell anyone, if you make a single move against me, he leaned close to my ear, his voice dripping like poison. I'll destroy you. And the man who dared to want you. That's when I screamed. A raw sound, filled with everything I had never been allowed to say. Get out. He stepped back, smirked, like a man who believed he controlled a sick game. Then he heard it. A sound in the distance. Wheels. A carriage approaching. He looked around like an animal sensing hunters. And before vanishing into the trees, he turned back to me one last time. We'll see each other soon, Lady Thorne. I promise. I didn't wait for another chance. I mounted with my heart racing, my vision blurred, and warm blood trickling down my arm where my skin had been scraped. But what hurt most was the emptiness on my chest where the brooch had been, as if, along with it, my hope and courage had been torn away. I couldn't feel my hands, only fear, shame, and a new kind of rage, like fire finally ready to burn outward. I was no longer that girl. But he was still the monster.
I don't usually lose my temper with idle nobles. mostly because I don't waste anger on the irrelevant. But that afternoon, my restraint was tested. My cousin Leopold, a bankrupt, loud-mouthed man addicted to cheap wine, appeared unannounced, demanding advice on properties that no longer belonged to him. I tolerated him out of courtesy and blood, nothing more. But in the middle of his endless chatter, something froze me. And I saw an old acquaintance of yours on Hollowbridge Road last night. He was at the Trenton Inn, if I'm not mistaken. Gloves, black suit, that nauseating smile. Langley, Lord Victor Langley, isn't it? Still dripping poison with that polished accent. He was meeting some duke from what I gathered. The name froze me. The cup in my hand cracked at the rim. Langley in the area. Now of all times, a knot rose from my stomach to my throat. An instinctive warning. Not rational, primal. I left before my cousin could finish the sentence. No apologies. No farewells. I stormed through the halls of Rosemore with the steps of a man who can hear his own blood thundering. I headed straight to the north wing. Lisette appeared in the corridor, her face alarmed by my sudden presence. "Where is Aurelia?" "She went riding about 3/4 of an hour ago," she answered, hesitating. "Was she accompanied?" "Yes, but Tom had to return. Something about a saddle problem with one of the mares. But she insisted she was safe. She said she'd be back soon." My hands clenched. The sky was already darkening. The wind was picking up, and every part of me screamed that something was wrong. I was already heading out to find her, ordering Tom to prepare my horse. But then the door opened. Aurelia walked in, and the world stopped. She didn't see me immediately, or pretended not to. Her eyes were distant, dark, her hands trembled slightly. Her breath was shallow, her jaw set tight. She took one step, then another, and stopped. "Aurelia," I called, my voice lower than I intended. She turned. Her face was a mask, but her eyes, they were full, not with tears, with a fear she was trying to hide, as if it were shameful. "I'm fine," she said, forcing a fragile smile. "I just lost the trail for a few minutes, a lie, then I saw it." Lisette approached to help her with the cloak and coat. And when the fabric slipped off her shoulders, the evidence stopped being an idea. It became marks. On her skin, raw, unforgivable. On the sleeve of her dress, a stain revealed. Fresh blood. The same hands that had touched me tenderly the night before were now trembling, as if searching for safety and not finding it in their own body. The pain inside me was silent, but so sharp I had to lower my eyes, which had suddenly darkened. I drew a deep breath. Twice, when I looked up again, she was already watching me. The fear in her was thick, like she was trying not to drown in front of me. "Aurelia," I said, voice steady but tight. "Look at me. Who did this?" "I'm fine," she whispered. "I just lost my balance on a turn." "Don't lie," I replied quietly but firmly. "You're injured, clearly shaken. Please don't lie to me. Who hurt you?" She hesitated, then turned her face away. Tears gathered on her lashes, stubborn. I stepped closer, unhurried, like approaching a wounded but noble creature. "Tell me," I urged. "Whatever it is, I'm here." She squeezed her eyes shut hard, and her shoulders gave in. She collapsed against me. Her arms circled my body, her breath breaking into the sob she couldn't contain. I pulled out my handkerchief and gently cleaned the blood from her arm. Then I held her, tightly, completely, as if that alone could keep the world's cruelty away. "He was there," she whispered against my chest. "Lord Victor Langley. He found me on the trail near the main road." Her body stiffened against mine, as if his name still poisoned her. Victor Langley, the well-dressed viper circling Rosemore like a vulture in evening attire. I knew. Her fear had a name. The cursed man who had wronged her. I knew who he was and what he'd done. But she didn't know that I knew. And for some reason that mattered. Because now she had chosen to tell me. And I would listen. She spoke slowly, cautiously. He approached me as if nothing had ever happened, cornered me. Said he knew who I was, that he'd always known. And that now I could wear fine lace, but I was still what he made me. Her words came in broken whispers between sobs, as if she were tearing out each piece of shadow as she spoke. In the past. He hurt me, more than I can describe. He stole my virtue, silenced me with threats, reduced me until I doubted if I deserved to exist. I closed my eyes in controlled fury, keeping my arms steady around her. she went on. Today. He tried again, tried to kiss me, touched me by force, hurt me, and then he threatened me. She pulled back just enough to meet my eyes. They were full of pain and courage. He said that if I told you, he would destroy my reputation, yours, everything. And she swallowed hard. I wanted to be strong, but I was terrified, Harry. It wasn't cowardice. It was fear. Fear of reliving everything. Fear of watching you go after him and getting hurt or killed because of me. And the worst part, she said, voice trembling, eyes glistening as she spoke against my chest. The worst part was the thought of looking at you and realizing that your gaze toward me had changed. Because you knew, because you'd see what was done to me in the past, she breathed, and each word fell like a stone pulled from her soul. I was afraid that the tenderness I found in your eyes, that quiet sweetness I've grown fonder of than I should, would disappear, and that I'd become invisible again, unworthy. She drew a deep breath and clutched the fabric of her slightly torn dress over her chest. He saw my brooch and tore it from me. She lowered her gaze for a moment, as if reliving the act. He said he'd keep it until I gave him what he wanted. Her voice faltered, wavering between pain and restrained fury, and in that moment, it was as if he'd stolen more than the jewel. As if he were trying to take away what you've built inside me, Harry. The silence that followed said everything. Tears fell, silent, but she didn't retreat, and I stood there, feeling my heart being broken and rebuilt into pieces that now belonged to her. Aurelia wasn't weak. She never had been. She stood before me, shattered inside, and still standing, still looking at me, still opening her hands to offer me her most devastating secret like a wounded flower that insists on blooming. And in that instant, I understood. Her trust was a gift, a quiet miracle that could not be demanded, only received. I cupped her face in both hands, gently, reverently, as if holding something sacred. My thumbs swept away her tears as if they could erase the stain left by that cursed man. But I knew, you don't erase something like that. You protect it. You honor it. I leaned closer, breathing her in like a man engraving that moment into his very flesh. Because there was nothing impure in Aurelia, nothing broken that wasn't worthy, nothing in her pain that didn't make her braver. More mine, more loved, Aurelia. Look at me. She lifted her eyes, tense, vulnerable, exposed. That bastard has no power over you anymore. Not over your name. Not over your body. And never again over what you think of yourself. You are a woman of integrity, pure, beautiful, and entirely worthy. And I am sorry that you carried this pain alone for so long. You never deserved that, my dear. My voice was deep but not loud. It was the sound of a man on the edge of war. You don't have to be afraid anymore. Not while I'm alive. She took a deep breath, gave a small nod. Thank you for listening. For believing me. She hugged me tighter. I bent down and kissed the top of her head with reverence, my lips lingering there as if they could heal her. Thank you for telling me. For trusting me. I swear on my life, I will never let anyone hurt you again. She nestled closer against my chest. I waited for her breathing to calm, but inside me a storm of fury raged through every fiber of my being. And then I stepped back, and she saw it. She saw the man who had held her take on another form, my hands clenched into fists, my jaw locked. The fury rose, clean and absolute. Not reckless, resolute, she shivered, but not in fear. In anticipation, Harry, she whispered. What are you going to do? I took her hand, brought it to my lips with both tenderness and resolve. I'm going to handle this, not as a count, as your husband, as the man who has the duty and the privilege to protect you, and who will not know rest while that vermin breathes free, unpunished for the evil he's done to you. Please, she began, her voice trembling. Don't put yourself in danger for Aurelia. I cut her off, firm. My voice was no longer the same. It was deeper, rawer, truer. She looked at me and saw not the composed aristocrat, but the man. That wretch had the audacity to lay a hand on you, to threaten you, to hurt you, on my land, in my home, to defile what is mine, you, my wife, and with filthy hands and vile words. Do you think my honor will allow me to stand by politely, like some well-mannered noble? Not this time. I will stop him myself. I will send him to hell." The words came out low, but they were forged steel. She froze, said nothing, didn't try to stop me, because in that moment she knew the man who loved her was the same man who now became a blade, and the love she'd awakened in me also wore armor now, and it would fight for her. And Langley, that coward, elegant like a wolf with rotten teeth, would soon discover that his last victim now had someone who would kill for her. The sky was white, not the white of peace, but the white that comes before the break, like a sheet stretched tight before it's stained with blood. The clearing was secluded, no noble witnesses, only Greaves silent a few paces away, hidden among the trees, and the brittle leaves. That would be the only ones to testify. The forest held its breath, and so did I. Langley appeared with the same arrogance I had seen in the pages of Aurelia's diary, and now in her eyes. Dark coat, black gloves, and that detestable smile that made my jaw clench at the mere sight of it. He stopped in front of me like a man savoring a victory he thought already won. And he spoke as if spitting venom. "Are you sure you want this, Thorn? All this for a used woman? One who was mine before she was yours? She moans sweetly, doesn't she? She did for me too." My fists tightened. Blood boiled, but I didn't respond. He pulled something from his inner pocket, and then I saw it. The brooch, the winged horse, tarnished silver between his filthy fingers. She tried to take it back from me, but you know how women are when they think something has value. He rolled it between his fingers like a trophy. "I'll hang it in my study, as a reminder that even the Count of Thorn has his price, and that your woman was never truly yours. Enough." My voice came out low and thunderous like a storm held too long. "You've crossed the line of what honor tolerates, Langley. And today, you'll pay." We took our positions, back to back. Paces counted, but Langley, as always, betrayed before he could ever earn anything. The crack came on the 8th step. The gunshot, a hot shock, hit my left side. My legs faltered, but my instinct stayed razor sharp. Turned, even staggering, even bleeding, and fired. The shot hit him hard and he stumbled, but he didn't fall. "You'll need more than that, Thorn," he hissed, wounded and breathless. To erase me from her skin, I threw the pistol to the ground and went for him. My vision was already darkening at the edges, but fury was my lighthouse. I grabbed him by the collar. The first blow landed clean, then the second, the third, the 10th. For what he did to her, for what he stole, for what she cried. "You touched what's mine," I growled through my teeth. He dropped to his knees, but I still saw him as a threat. In one swift movement, I snatched my fallen gun from the ground, and without hesitation, I fired twice into his chest. No glory, no final words. Langley collapsed. The confrontation ended there definitively. The forest fell silent, but inside me, a storm roared. I looked down. The brooch lay there, covered in dirt and a defiling red stain. The symbol he'd tried to profane. I knelt, picked it up, and as my fingers closed around it, something broke inside me. A sharp pain cut through my chest. My body gave way. The ground rose up to meet me. The clearing spun, and before everything went black, I thought of her. Her face, her embrace, and in a whisper meant for no one else, I said, "Aurelia, I got back what's yours."
The silence at Rosemore was different that late afternoon. It was heavy. The whole house seemed to hold its breath, as if the portraits on the walls and the candelabras knew. Lisette tried to distract me. Evelyn kept the fire going, but all I could feel was his absence. He wasn't there, and it burned inside me. When I heard the pounding hooves in the courtyard and hurried voices, I ran to the entrance before any servant could stop me. "Milady." "No!" Greaves's voice echoed as he tried to hold me back, but I was already there, and then I saw him. Harry, being carried in by 2 men, clothes stained, face pale, one eye half open. The world stopped. "No," my voice was a breath. Then a scream. "No!" I ran to him, dropped to my knees beside him, my hands instantly covered in the blood I had never wanted to see. "Harry," I called, swallowing panic. "Harry, look at me, please." His body was limp, cold, but still warm enough to hold on to hope. "Don't leave me," I begged, tears blurring my sight. "You promised you'd come back to me." His eyes opened slowly. Hazy but alive. Aurelia, I love you. I said it without hesitation. Please, I need you. Now I know, Harry, I love you. Please don't leave me. His hand trembled, but it moved. From his blood-stained coat pocket, he pulled out the brooch. Caked with dirt, but whole, he placed it in my palm, with an effort that seemed to tear the air around us. I brought it back. He whispered, voice fading. What's yours? My breath caught. I closed my fingers around the brooch and pressed it to my chest, as if I were holding on to the part of him I would never let go. He smiled. Slowly, as if that smile were the hardest and most precious thing he'd ever done. If this is my end, I die smiling, because I heard what I've waited for my whole life. No. I gripped his hand tightly. You're not going anywhere. Not now. Not after everything. You saved me. Now it's my turn. I ordered them to take him to the bedroom. Mr. Greaves barked swift commands. Tom galloped off for the doctor. The nurse had already been sent for, but I stayed, all night, sitting by his bedside, with the brooch beside his pillow, and my hands laced with his, whispering his name, murmuring promises, and silently praying that the love that had pulled him from darkness would now bring him back to the light. For days, life was reduced to the silence of a single room. No dinners, no visits, no reading, only his breathing, sometimes soft, sometimes almost fading away, and my whispered prayers between damp cloths and kisses pressed against his still hand. Harry slept, and I kept vigil, as if my watchfulness alone could keep him here, with me, in this world. There was one night I thought I would lose him. The fever climbed. He murmured incoherent words, and my name, whispered with the fragility of a secret. The next morning, when he opened his eyes, I was reborn. I said nothing. I just smiled. And he, still weak, smiled back. No one understood what passed between us then, but we did. In the days that followed, he slowly regained his strength, bit by bit, until one afternoon, when the sky was amber and the wind carried the scent of lavender, I invited him for a walk. The garden needs you, I teased. It's been far too serious lately, he accepted with a nod, and with his hand he took mine. We walked slowly, in silence, until we reached the fountain. The water flowed and its sound filled the space between our words. When I thought I might lose you, I began unsure if I should continue. Everything inside me collapsed. But I'm here, he replied, his voice deeper, a little hoarse. And I intend to stay. We looked at each other. There was something different that day, something both ancient and new. The distance between our bodies no longer existed, only skin waiting for skin, only breaths waiting for the gesture, and I made the gesture. I cupped his face in both hands. My fingers traced his dark beard. I felt the strength of his jaw beneath my palms. Now I know. I whispered, "Know what?" He asked, his eyes locked with mine. That no one bought me. You chose me, and I choose you. Every day he kissed me, and the rest was silence.
I kissed her. Not like a man taking something, but like a man receiving everything he'd ever longed for. Aurelia was no longer the guarded woman who had looked at me with suspicion during those first mornings at Rosemore. She was tamed fire, strength in bloom. She was mine, and I was entirely hers. The softness of her lips in the first seconds gave way to an old, deep thirst. A mature, conscious surrender. Our hands found each other as if they already knew the way. When I lifted her into my arms, my side still aching slightly from the wound, I felt no weakness. Only steady, quiet desire. I carried her to my room. Not the room assigned to us by contract. Mine. The one I had slept in before knowing her. The one where I had dreamed of her. Because now she belonged there too. I closed the door with my foot. Her eyes never left mine. I slid the coat off her shoulders. She slid mine off with hands that trembled but didn't retreat. I trust you, she whispered. I trust you too, I replied. I trust that my body will only find peace in yours. And that my heart will only answer to one name if it's spoken by your lips. Aurelia. When I laid her down on the bed, she pulled me to her with the certainty of someone who had found where they belonged. And there, on white linen sheets between the scent of dried flowers and the whispering wind outside. We undressed slowly, not just our clothes, but our pain, our fears, our ancient silences. Her skin was warm like a promise. Her touch was gentle and sweet, and her eyes spoke everything: desire, tenderness, love.
The light was soft. His hands were steady, yet restrained, as if each movement was a deliberate act of reverence. His eyes. Those blue eyes that once carried the winter of guilt, now burned like a gentle flame, a warmer blue than summer, making him even more desirable. He didn't look at me like someone who merely wanted. He looked at me like someone who saw, who recognized. For the first time, there was no fear, no guilt, no suffocating shame weighing on my soul. There was desire, my desire for him. There was the certainty that I was wanted in that room, that my skin was welcomed, that my body finally wasn't an invaded territory, but a home being entered with tenderness. When he touched me, my heart didn't retreat. It opened into the most intense, beautiful feeling I had ever known. And when he wrapped me in his strong arms, with the kind of strength I knew could dominate, but would never harm, I gave myself, completely, as a woman, as a lover, as a wife. My fingers traced the lines of his shoulders. My lips moved toward his, shy at first, but filled with wanting. Harry. I breathed, between the heat of our breaths and the tremor of my words. "Kiss me, my love," he smiled, slow, deep, with a light in his eyes I had never seen before, and now knew was mine. "With pleasure, my countess," he whispered, voice low, velvety, heavy with devotion, and then he kissed me. A warm kiss, slow, but full of an underground fire. His mouth moved against mine like it already knew every path, as if each brush of his lips said, "You're safe now," and deeply loved. And there, between the sheets, I discovered the difference between being merely desired and being truly loved.
I made love to my wife for the first time, and there was not a trace of contract in our bodies, only a wordless devotion. It was love in its fullest form, deep, real, whole, and when her body answered mine, when my name slipped past her lips carried on her breath, an overwhelming pleasure consumed me, and I knew nothing in the world could ever be worth more than that. She belonged to me. She chose to give herself to me, and I was at last whole, holding her in my arms, losing and finding myself in her gaze. The truth escaped my mouth like a sacred vow, effortless, unguarded. "I love you, Aurelia," I whispered against her skin, breathless, trembling with emotion. "You are my peace after the war. You give meaning to my name, to my blood, to everything I am." She looked at me, and her words came like a miracle, between a shudder of pleasure and the glow of belonging in her eyes. "And you, my dear, you're the only man my body has ever yielded to out of love, and the only one who's ever reached my soul. I will love you always." We held each other afterward, for a long time, and we kissed even longer, in silence, because there was nothing left to say that love hadn't already spoken through our bodies. She fell asleep in my arms, and I, though still wounded, felt stronger than I'd ever been. The courtyard was prepared, not with luxury but with intention. Lights hung above us like tamed stars. The tables had been cleared. A small string quartet played soft music in the distance. The scent of summer, night-blooming flowers, fresh jasmine framed the night perfectly. Aurelia appeared just as the first chords filled the air. She wore white, simple, timeless. She paused beneath the ivy-covered arch, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. The white dress floated around her like mist kissed by light, and fastened to her chest. There it was, the brooch, silver and ivory, a winged horse, delicate as the whisper of a dream, steady as the memory that gave it life. I approached her slowly, the way I always did, with reverence. "You still look at me as if I were made of enchantment," she said, smiling, her eyes gleaming with unspoken knowing. "That's because you are," I answered, my voice rougher than I intended. She laid her fingers on the brooch. "I've never asked you, but tonight, I need to know. Why this one? Why this symbol?" I lowered my gaze briefly, then met hers. the eyes of a woman waiting for a truth. And for the first time, I wanted to tell it. Months before everything. Before the contract. Before your name was whispered through old corridors. I saw you, she frowned, surprised. You saw me, I nodded. In Hollowbridge. In the stables. You were kneeling before an injured horse, speaking to him as if he were made of glass and you knew exactly how to piece him back together. You spoke like someone who understood the pain of being unable to run. Like someone who wanted to save and be saved. Her hand slowly rose to cover her mouth. But I continued. I didn't know who you were. I only knew that your eyes, your voice, your words stayed with me, like a beautiful scar, like a prayer that refuses to be forgotten. I had the brooch made that week, because something in me knew I needed to remember that moment, even if I never saw you again, and you gave it to me. On the night we married, she whispered, tears now spilling down her cheeks, when I didn't trust anything, but I already trusted. In you, in what I saw, in what I felt, and in what we would become, she wept, not from pain, but from awe, from the raw beauty of realizing she had been loved before she ever knew it was possible. You loved me in silence, she said, voice trembling. I loved you before I knew it. And I love you more each day, and you, I murmured, touching her face with the fingers that had so often soothed her. You saved me from that quiet sadness that had settled in me. Her eyes shone brighter than the sky. And that night, the brooch was more than a jewel. It was a secret unveiled, living proof that some loves are born before names, before touch, before stories. And they bring with them the greatest freedom of all, to be seen, understood, and desired in full. She wrapped her arms around me. Her body, her heart. She wept softly against my chest. And this love healed me, Harry, because it never demanded. It simply welcomed me. We parted just enough for me to look into her eyes. And I saw it. There were no more shadows, no more defenses. The woman who once trembled at the thought of being touched now shone. May I ask one more thing? I said. She smiled, wiping her tears. Always. Dance with me. We moved to the center of the courtyard, beneath the strings of light to the slow rhythm of the music. My hands on her waist, her face resting against my shoulder. The world disappeared. It was only when silence fell between songs that she stepped back slightly and took my hand. She placed it over her belly and said, "There's more than one heartbeat inside me now." My world stopped, as if every sound of the night had bowed before that revelation. I looked at her still flat belly, then into her eyes, and for the first time, I cried without pain, without bitterness, without the old weights. I cried with gratitude, with wonder, with boundless love. I kissed her passionately, fiercely, and reverently. My wife, my countess, my life. Then I rested my forehead against hers, drew a deep breath and spoke, my voice thick with truth and emotion. I thought I had already lived everything life would allow me. And then you came, and now you carry within you something I never dared to dream of. You've given me more than an heir, Aurelia. You've given me a future filled with hope. She smiled through her tears, and I knew that nothing in the world was more sacred than that moment.
And when our lips parted, I saw him. The sad eyes of the Count had become a radiant home. Full, bright, happy. The most beautiful eyes in the world. He was no longer the man with the veiled gaze I had first seen in the carriage, nor the Count who offered me a name when I believed I had none left. He was Harry, whole, and looking not at the past, but at me, those eyes that once carried the weight of mourning and guilt. Now were shelter. Now were light. Now were peace. I saw in them a home, a place where I could lay down my fears, plant my hopes, and be loved, where I didn't need to be perfect, only be, and be chosen. There beneath the stars, with his arms around my waist, and the world forgetting us for a single moment. I knew his sadness had not won, because the love that found us, even when we resisted, had chosen to stay. And somewhere between pain and surrender, I had become the healing for the saddest eyes I'd ever seen. And he became my miracle of flesh, soul, and eternity. Harry, the Count of Limette, my Count, my love. The story of Aurelia and Harry, the sad-eyed clown. Tea was a journey of love that healed deep wounds and transformed their destinies. If their redemption moved you, subscribe to the channel and share in the comments the moment that touched your heart the most.